right, it is Illinois in Focus Daily on this Halloween. Good morning. I'm Greg Bishop and going on very little sleep. We're talking 2.5 hours maybe. I think I'm going to have to take a nap after the show because we were at the state capitol until about 4:30 this morning on Halloween. And it's the latest I've been at the Capitol for an end-of-session midnight run. And boy, oh boy, they did a lot. So we'll see how the show goes. Plenty to tackle from last night's fall veto session wrap-up. I say last night, it was actually this morning. Again, 4:30 in the morning when they wrapped up. And they passed a modified transit funding bill. They approved energy legislation. They even, in the Senate, to, I guess, kill time while they were waiting for the House to send stuff over, they passed the aid in dying measure, the assisted suicide measure. So they did a lot, even though most of the day yesterday, not much happened. It seemed that about 7 o'clock comes around and they went into it. So we've got tons to tackle here, including a measure that enhances the Illinois Trust Act, Illinois' migrant sanctuary policies. So let's do it. Let's get into it. All right. It is Illinois in Focus Daily, each and every weekday morning here with you with the Center Square. Get to thecentersquare.com where you can sign up for the newsletter and see the latest headlines, including the activity from last night. You can watch video clips there as well, and of course here on YouTube, the Center Square. Subscribe and wake up with us each and every weekday morning. All right, quick little breather, then we'll just slam right through it, and I think we're just going to do one long segment, a roundup of what happened at the Illinois State Capitol last night.
But I gotta tell you, this has been one hell of a veto session. It's been an expensive couple days for taxpayers here, with initiatives to increase insurance rates, energy prices, and now a massive sales tax increase throughout the RTA, including an increase on groceries for communities that did not reinstate their own grocery tax after we eliminated it, $1 billion tax increase for the tollway, and a betrayal of trust for people that wanted to work together in a bipartisan way to do something good for investing in infrastructure. It's a terrible day, week, experience in this General Assembly. I can't express enough my disappointment in the way that this has been handled, the way this body conducts itself, the way this chamber is operated. Something's got to give.
So
please vote no.
State Representative Ryan Spain this morning at the Illinois legislature as they wrapped up fall veto session. And that was at about 2 o'clock, but that wasn't as late as they went. They went until about 4:30 in the Illinois Senate, passing some pretty substantial legislation, and it is Illinois in Focus Daily. Please pardon me. I'm running on very, very little sleep. I even bypassed the coffee because I think I'm going to have to get a nap in at some points later on after I get the rest of the news day humming here. So greatly appreciate you being here. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. Tons to tackle last night. Energy legislation passed. The transit bill, funding bill passed. You've got legislation enhancing the state's migrant sanctuary policies passing. A lot of passionate debates, but long hours. And just to give you another example of how this morning went, this was about 4 o'clock this morning. Steve McClure, Republican state senator, debating about the transit bill. He says that this is just another issue that Illinoisans are going to wake up and find out about, and they're going to be frustrated and upset because it's getting more and more expensive to live in the state of Illinois.
Afford to live in this state anymore. All these tax increases that are happening last night, this morning, are absolutely insane, and I don't think that the average person is going to be able to keep up tomorrow or later this morning when they read news stories. We're talking about tolls, we're talking about potential increases elsewhere in energy and otherwise. Our state is losing population, and our state, in comparison to our neighbors, is a state that is taxed out of control.
So obviously the taxation issues very crucial when it comes to how exactly the state's going to operate with funding and taxes and economic activity and even energy costs. So those are just, of course, State Representative Ryan Spain, State Senator Steve McClure, some of the final speeches made on some consequential legislation in each chamber. And if you've followed this program enough, you kind of, understand the shell bill game that there is and how last minute they take a bill, they gut it, they replace it, and then it can get over to the other chamber rapidly. Some of that happened throughout this week. But, let's get into the energy policies. They obviously were debating the energy issues for months and months and months, and it came out last night that they're moving forward with the energy omnibus bill. Had multiple amendments, hours and hours of discussion. The measure, it puts more reliance on renewable energies, including battery storage. And Republicans said this is going to be an $8 billion hit to ratepayers in Illinois because of the reliance and the subsidies for battery storage. Here is State Senator Steve Stottleman. He sponsored the measure in the Illinois Senate last night.
As I mentioned at the beginning, that item will be immediately offset because that's the same date that the battery storage providers will start providing extra capacity, providing power to the grid, and that will offset that cost. And as I've said numerous times before, the dividends will continue to pay down the road. There will be billions of dollars of savings by the additional generation caused by the battery storage because they're very effective at dealing with those peak demands, and customers will see more capacity and lower bills in the years ahead because of how this is structured.
So you've got Stottleman supporting the measure, saying that this is going to be great for Illinois energy. Republicans weren't too happy about it. You have State Senator Terry Bryant saying that this is going to be an $8 billion hit to ratepayers.
The bill is an $8 billion rate increase. It asks Illinois families to foot the bill for the state's latest energy experiment, and the result will be higher electric bills, fewer reliable power sources, and more special treatment for the politically connected.
And she also went in to discuss how you've got the renewable energy industry pushing for this, and they're going to get a lot of carve-outs. They're going to get a lot of subsidization. And Republicans have pushed back, saying that if energy is if a certain type of energy is strong enough in the marketplace, it doesn't need subsidies. But when it comes to the battery storage component, they're going to be tacking on a line item on your bill after, I'm told, a battery facility gets online. But Democrats say this is all to ease the price increases that we've seen over the past summer. Republicans say that they've heard that story before with previous energy policies that the state has passed. So ultimately passed the Senate after it passed the House Wednesday night. So Wednesday night in the House, when they were debating this, State Representative Martin McLaughlin, a Republican from Barrington Hills, he invoked former Illinois House Speaker Mike Madigan's name.
We can get into the finite nature of batteries and the rest of it, but the Democrats have a long history of helping utility payers. Former Speaker Mike Madigan, that I had a brief period of working with, about 26 days, and a former head of a major power company, and the number 2 nationally, are both in prison for helping utility payers in the state of Illinois. Then we have CEJA a few years ago. We got within 24 hours of shutting down 2 nuclear plants. And my Democrat friends in the aisle combined the threat of a shutdown of Seneca and Byron with a bunch of crummy ideas in a CEJA bill. So I decided to work with the Democrats and voted for CEJA. I've regretted it ever since. And now we have this non-guarantee of future rate reduction. Please, please, Democrats, stop helping utility payers across the state of Illinois. They cannot afford any more of your expensive help. Ronald Reagan said it best. The scariest words from politicians are, I'm here from the government and I'm here to help. Utility payers in Illinois cannot afford your well-intentioned, bad, expensive ideas.
And McLaughlin, of course, raising the issue during the energy bill debate. State's Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer, Wednesday night in the House when they passed the energy bill, also very critical of the idea of this saving ratepayers money. And you've got opponents like the Illinois Manufacturers Association saying that this is going to hurt Illinois' business climate by making power more expensive because of the reliance on renewable energies in the state of Illinois. Again, here's more from C.D. Davidsmeyer.
We should be looking at natural gas to produce more energy, not just find a way to store a non-base load production. The reality is we've passed FEJA, which increased rates. We've passed CEJA, which increased rates. And now we're going back to ratepayers saying, oh, give us one more try. Third time's a charm. Let us pass this and it'll lower your rates. The reality is that none of this will be online for at least 5 years. So energy prices are going to continue to rise because of FEJA and CEJA. They're going to continue to rise.
So you've got Davidsmeyer pointing out that indeed the savings aren't going to be immediate if there's going to be any savings at all as energy prices continue to rise. And you heard about natural gas. Keep in mind, Illinois is on track to close coal-fired power plants and natural gas-powered plants by 2035 and 2040, I believe. And with that benchmark of, hey, we're going to close this year, who's going to invest in those to keep them going? They're probably going to close earlier as the state's focus on decarbonization is enshrined in Illinois law. But this just further enshrines that. And I want to go back to the Senate because earlier this morning, State Senator Chapin Rose, he was very passionate, and he said that ratepayers and taxpayers across the state of Illinois, he told Democrats they don't believe them anymore. Because one bill they said it was going to lower rates, didn't. Second bill said it was going to lower rates, didn't. Third bill, here we are. It was approved early this morning in both chambers. Here's Senator Rose.
Under your guys' leadership, every time you say, oh, power bills are going to come down. We're doing this because we care about the little guy. We care about the consumer. It's going to be okay. We're doing this to get tough on those evil energy companies. Green's good, and we're going to lower your power bills. Well, you know what? Nobody believes you. Nobody believes you. Here's the other good one. It's not even about the price of power anymore. It's all the add-ons, all those fees that add on over and above just the cost of the raw product. I added up the fees on my bill. I had $42.06 in fees on $156.92 in power. That's 27%. Well, 26.8% really, just in fees. And most of those fees are things like the Renewable Power Grid Transfer Program, the battery program, this program, clean that, green this. $42 in fees. 27% of my electric bill isn't even the cost of electricity, which you guys have already sent through the roof. It's all the other add-ons. And here we are, $8 billion in rate increases on the people of the state of Illinois. $8 billion. Who can afford to live here? So let's talk some more stuff. You got an Illinois Power Authority study, a study that I would point out was done before the bill that was just filed was even introduced. You have a study on a bill that didn't exist when the study was done. Why? Because the bill wasn't filed till Tuesday. Who believes you? Nobody. Nobody in reality. They do believe their power bill because they get it every month. They do know when it's done every month. But hey, let's look at a study from Europe. Germany, Spain, Denmark, and the UK. And this is what it costs for every 10% in renewables. Every 10% renewables on the grid, it adds about 4 cents to the per kilowatt cost. Okay, no big deal, 4 cents. Except that people consume a lot of kilowatts. So in a year, for every 10% renewables, you're up $400 or $500 on the average consumer. By the way, you got another 35% to go in Illinois. That's another $1,500 if the Europe study is in effect. And as my good friend Senator Bryant pointed out, the rates we got right now were the capped rates, and you're taking the caps off. Katie, bar the door. Here they come.
So obviously Rose very animated last night, and the energy bill, it's going to be on the way to the governor's desk. He put out a statement praising the passage of it last night, and that's just one measure that passed. And again, I say last night, it was early this morning by the time all those pieces were finally put to place. But again, long day yesterday. And just briefly here, I want to remind you, go to thecentersquare.com, get the newsletter so you can wake up with the headlines in your inbox. We're on the ground there. It's not just myself. We've got Jim Talamonte, who is monitoring and reporting. You also have the team from Blue Room Stream, Lisa, Paul, Chris, instrumental in getting eyes on all that was happening last night and getting cameras where they need to go and operating those cameras. So it's a lot of hard work there in the trenches at the state capitol. So I just wanted to recognize the hard work that they put in each and every session as well. So the energy bill passed, but then it was time to talk about transit, and we didn't have final language of the transit bill yesterday evening when they held a committee hearing to tackle the transit funding bill. State Representative Eva Dina Delgado from Chicago, Democrat, she led the efforts to find the different types of revenue. Now, yesterday, we were talking about a possible amusement tax for streaming services. We were talking about a possible billionaire tax on unrealized gains. We were talking about the potential of a surcharge on large event tickets, things that they were looking to increase taxes on to bring about $1.5 billion for mass transit. Now, the math here, you've got questions about just how big that fiscal cliff was. Earlier this summer, we were told it was $700+ million, and then they revised that just before session to say it was going to be $220 million, but they wanted to raise $1.5 billion in taxes to help fund mass transit, but also to reform the governing structure of the mass transit oversight. But in committee, they brought this measure up, and it hadn't even been filed yet. Nobody had the printout in front of them when they were talking about what is now. It passed early this morning, 2 o'clock in the House, 4 o'clock this morning in the Senate. But they changed the initial idea from the original Senate bill in May, which was a $1.50 retail delivery tax for everything that you get from like Amazon or any other online retailer delivered to your house, or even pizza, for instance. The Senate passed that in May. The House did not take that up. And then we come in over the summer and we're hearing all kinds of other ideas to fund mass transit. Wednesday, we hear that they want to do the streaming services tax, the large event ticket tax, the billionaire tax. Governor J.B. Pritzker seemed to throw water on all of those ideas, but they then modified that. Here's State Representative Delgado talking about what those modifications look like.
There will be a road fund interest dedication to transit capital.
The changes being just that Regional Transit Authority being able to increase their sales tax for their region. And then also, they're going to sweep the interest off of the road fund. The road fund's making a lot of interest because it's billions and billions of dollars. Why? Because they doubled the state's gas tax back in 2019, and all of that's going into the road fund, and they've got a ton of money sitting in that fund, so it's accumulating a lot of interest. So they're going to sweep some of that interest and put it towards transit. You had Sean Stott with the laborers. He opposed the idea of sweeping those funds because laborers fought to get that tax increase in 2019 to continue infrastructure funding and jobs and updates to the state's infrastructure. Stott opposed this measure in committee.
Or we're telling our folks at the Department of Transportation not to spend the money that is there in order to meet this budgetary item. That is further compounded by the fact that we are taking away $600 and what would be $890 million that would otherwise go into the road fund. $600+ million, which today is part of the very reason we have such a robust road fund balance.
Now, the idea of how much money they're taking out of the road fund is a lot of people upset, especially in downstate. In the Senate last night when they were looking to pass this, they had all kinds of questions about just how much of downstate money was going to the Chicagoland area. State Representative Dan Ugasti, he talked about the idea of taxation because that wasn't the only measure they passed yesterday dealing with taxation. They also passed the decoupling from federal tax code. And Ugasti said, if you do that, if you take away the state of Illinois' tax code to reflect, to not reflect what the federal tax code is, it's going to hurt manufacturers. It's going to hurt big businesses and small businesses who are looking to get certain types of tax benefits from, say, losses or depreciation, for instance. And these things are going to make Illinois less competitive, he said.
We're putting our businesses at a competitive disadvantage again by decoupling, while every other state that is still coupled to the federal tax law is going to see a savings for their business because the federal taxes have been lowered. With us raising them again, which is essentially a tax increase, to the level we were previously at when the federal government's lowered them for everyone else competing with us in every other state, we have now again put our businesses, or any business that wants to be here, at a competitive disadvantage because the manufacturers, the businesses in the other state will be able to do it cheaper.
Now, earlier in the day, the governor held a news conference focused on immigration enforcement, and we'll touch on that here in a moment. But I asked him about decoupling and how it does not make Illinois less competitive. And he gave an interesting answer here yesterday during the news conference in his office.
Well, look, remember that the purpose ultimately is to make sure that we can pay the bills in the state of Illinois and not be hampered by Donald Trump and the big ugly bill. And having a better healthcare system than other states, having a better road system than other states, having better services available to families, whether it's early childhood programs or paying for our schools. Those are all things that are very attractive to business and very attractive to families. And so we're proud of the fact that we will maintain as best we can the very high quality services that we provide for working families, and think that that makes us more competitive than not decoupling.
So the governor saying that by keeping funding levels where they are, and maybe even increasing funding levels, it's going to make the states more attractive to businesses and families because they're going to have better services, better taxpayer-funded services. Keep in mind, Governor Pritzker has increased spending in the state of Illinois 40+%, $16 billion since he's come into office in 2019. And when Donald Trump got reelected for a second non-consecutive term, he extended, with Republican-controlled Congress, tax cuts he passed back in 2017. And the extension of those tax breaks for small businesses and large businesses and families and working people, that's led to the possibility that Illinois could miss out on hundreds of millions of dollars. So the idea is you decouple Illinois' tax code from the federal tax code so that Illinois can still collect some of those dollars. Instead, you've got now the legislature approving that decoupling, so those tax dollars are going to still come from Illinois businesses, despite Indiana coupling with the federal tax code, and that's going to make it in Indiana more competitive. But the governor says the real competition is the quality of tax-funded services that he's wanting to ensure are there for families, for schools, for education, for infrastructure, for healthcare, for instance. So the decoupling bill passed, but some other things that passed as well, some measures impacting ICE enforcement. And one measure that passed yesterday out of both chambers, it's essentially will allow for hospitals, actually requires hospitals and daycares and colleges to have policies and procedures about law enforcement on the ground. We'll touch on that in a moment, but yesterday, the governor held a news conference blasting the Trump administration and the Department of Homeland Security and urging them to suspend immigration enforcement during Halloween.
Our Chicagoland neighborhoods are being bombarded with tear gas, invaded by unidentified masked men in unmarked vehicles, thugs who are intimidating workers and children and grandparents, most of whom are black or brown.
So the governor really critical, as we've heard, of the Trump administration's immigration enforcement efforts. Now, we'd heard that the legislature was going to advance some kind of expansion of the migrant sanctuary policies. Democrats held news conferences about it throughout the day and throughout the week. And I'd asked Democrats about the concern they may have if they enhance the state's migrant sanctuary policies. Isn't that just going to mean the Trump administration is going to double down and you might see more of the chaos that they're worried about happening on the streets of Chicagoland? I asked that same question to the governor. How is the state's migrant sanctuary policies not impacting the Trump administration doubling down or flooding the zone, as they say, in migrant sanctuary Illinois? Some are saying that it's because state law says that local police can't cooperate.
No, that's not.
How is that not causing?
That's ridiculous. No, what's happening is, I mean, you can look at many of the videos. We've got lots of testimony and videos to show that the way that ICE and CBP are attempting to carry out the orders that they're given from Kristi Noem, from Gregory Bovino, is frankly appears to be against the law, against protocols. I'm giving you options to pick from, against protocols that are given to federal agents or to police. They are the ones who are causing the mayhem on the ground.
So he says that federal officials are stoking the chaos with protesters by going and rounding people up who have a certain skin color. The governor, again, he went on to urge the Department of Homeland Security to suspend their immigration operations during the Halloween holiday.
Mr. Bovino, your operation has sown fear and division and chaos among law-abiding residents in our communities. If you are unwilling to cease operations and leave our city, can we at least agree that our children should not be victims, especially on Halloween? Can we agree that there is no imminent threat that should disrupt their holiday?
Kristi Noem was in Gary, Indiana, and she was asked about Pritzker's request. She straight up denied that request.
No, we're absolutely not willing to put on pause any work that we will do to keep communities safe. The fact that Governor Pritzker is asking for that is shameful. And I think unfortunate that he doesn't recognize how important the work is that we do to make sure we're bringing criminals to justice and getting them off our streets, especially when we're going to send all of our kiddos out on the streets and going to events and enjoying the holiday season. Those individuals don't deserve to be on our streets, and we're certainly not going to let our kids be victimized by it.
Noem again saying that they are going to continue their increased enforcement efforts with Operation Midway Blitz in the Chicagoland area. And that obviously is something that's again, I apologize, he's got to reset, going on very little sleep. I haven't even had any coffee yet after, like 2.5 hours of sleep. Because the legislature was in until 4:30 this morning. But Noem saying that they're going to continue their immigration enforcement efforts. They're going to also focus on the worst of the worst, and they're not going to suspend during the Halloween holiday. And all of this leading to Democrats at the State House talking about masked men, tear gas in the streets, schools and daycares being locked down because of immigration enforcement that's happening outside, and just the chaos on the streets. And they brought out a measure that would require hospitals, daycares, and universities to have policies in place to essentially block federal civil police enforcement. But there were a lot of questions about this bill that came out on the last day of session and was ultimately passed by both chambers. House Speaker Chris Welch was in front of a committee yesterday evening, and he spearheaded this effort with Senate President Don Harmon, and he talked about the measure that he wants to ultimately get into place last night during a committee hearing.
This bill also protects higher education campuses and daycare centers. They must also adopt policies to protect students and children in their care, including protection against disclosing an attendee's real or perceived immigration status.
And when it comes to the law enforcement perspective here, Kenny Winslow, former Springfield police chief, now he's the executive director of the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police, he said that this could impact morale. He's also worried that the measure that passed, allowing for a private right of action, which is essentially somebody given the ability to sue law enforcement, and that could lead to qualified immunity being stripped away. He said that this is a major issue that he heard about leading into the final day of session, more than he heard about with the Safety Act, for instance, which ultimately led to the end of cash bail in Illinois.
Right now, we are strongly opposed. I haven't received more phone calls and emails in the last 24 hours or more concerns or angst over a bill since the Safety Act than I have over this bill here, over concerns about how it's going to create a right of action against our officers who are out there doing their job. We are worried about the recruitment and retention issue and how this may negatively impact that.
And how is that going to impact police morale? Something else that's very much questioned by state legislators. But again, late night sessions lead to interesting perspectives, like State Representative Brad Halbrook, who during debate on the mass transit bailout bill, he was trying to crunch numbers, and he's like, listen, it's really early in the morning, and the legislature has a tendency to do this time and time again.
So, Leader, I'm trying to understand math here in Springfield, and what is really kind of bizarre to me, but it's becoming a reality more and more every day, is that we do hard math with really, really big numbers after midnight, it seems like, or just before midnight on the last day of the May session. Here at this hour at Lame Duck, or I'm sorry, boy, it's just getting late. In this veto session, we do this stuff over and over again at Lame Duck. It just seems bizarre to me.
And the math issues with the budget in May, and now you've got the math issues with the transit bailout. Again, you had several Republicans pointing out that indeed it was 4 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning, depending on the chamber, when they passed a significant mass transit bailout. Here is, again, State Representative Ryan Spain talking about this when the mass transit bailout bill passed the Illinois House.
I'll bring my remarks to a close, but I got to tell you, this has been one hell of a veto session. It's been an expensive couple days for taxpayers here, with initiatives to increase insurance rates, energy prices, and now a massive sales tax increase throughout the RTA, including an increase on groceries for communities that did not reinstate their own grocery tax after we eliminated it, $1 billion tax increase for the tollway, and a betrayal of trust for people that wanted to work together in a bipartisan way to do something good for investing in infrastructure. It's a terrible day, week, experience in this General Assembly. I can't express enough my disappointment in the way that this has been handled, the way this body conducts itself, the way this chamber is operated. Something's got to give. Please vote no.
Representative.
Meanwhile, in the Senate, Senator Steve McClure talking about how it's just too expensive to live in Illinois.
People can't afford to live in this state anymore. All these tax increases that are happening last night, this morning, are absolutely insane. And I don't think that the average person is going to be able to keep up tomorrow or later this morning when they read news stories. We're talking about tolls. We're talking about potential increases elsewhere in energy and otherwise. Our state is losing population, and our state, in comparison to our neighbors, is a state that is taxed out of control.
That's your roundup. Monday, we'll do what we can to unpack some more of this, go into a little bit more detail. It's a lot to take in. Again, the team with the Center Square and Blue Room Stream covering all of this over the past 24 hours. Very little sleep had. Legislators, you can see, were nodding off at 2 and 3 in the morning. Meanwhile, throughout the day, I was able to go do a grocery run because nothing was going on at the Capitol during the day. It wasn't until 11 o'clock at night when things started getting rolling, and this is the ultimate outcome. Whew. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning for the live program. Go to thecentersquare.com, get the headlines in your inbox with the newsletter, and also subscribe to us here on YouTube, because it's not just this program. You can get clips and highlights of debates, what's happening on the ground in Springfield, but also what's going on in Washington, D.C. and across the country. Go to thecentersquare.com. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. All right, guys. Again, appreciate you being here. We've got a lot to tackle Monday. We'll revisit some of this. I believe we're going to talk with U.S. Senate candidate Don Tracy, who's turning in his petitions today. We'll also talk about tax amnesty and the state of Illinois saying, hey, if you owe back taxes from a certain period of time, you can pay those taxes without any penalties or fees. So I talked with the Department of Revenue director, and I'll share that conversation with you coming up Monday. So tons to tackle. And again, we just focused on some of the controversial stuff, most controversial stuff from the past 24 hours with today's roundup. But they tackled all kinds of other things. The assisted suicide bill passed the Senate, a measure dealing with sealing criminal records passed that had some opposition. Just a whole host of things getting approved by the legislature in the wee hours of the morning, Halloween morning. Trick or treat. Happy Halloween. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of the day. I got to get out of here and get some rest. Maybe, do I drink a cup of coffee? Or do I just power through and maybe take a couple of hour power nap in the middle of the day? Either way. we'll get it taken care of. Have a great weekend. Be safe out there, and we'll see you back here Monday for Illinois in Focus Daily.